husband went on a supposed business opportunity and cheated on me with his affair partner while my stepdaughter covered for him. So I took all the money from bank and left him with divorce papers. 2 weeks ago 42 female discovered that my husband, 46 male of 6 years, have been cheating on me, and the worst part was that my stepdaughter had been covering for him, even though I have treated her like my own daughter. All this while my husband and stepdaughter, I will refer to them as Jeff and Vanessa, have been a part of my life for the past 12 years, and I've watched Vanessa grow up, and I pretty much raised her since she was 6 years old, since she lost her mother a few months after she was born. She just turned 18 a couple of weeks ago, and Jeff and I bought her a car for her birthday. But in reality, it was actually me who paid for the car. We told her that it was a gift from both her parents, since Jeff has been unemployed for the past 8 months, and I'm the only one that's been working like a fool to take care of this family. His previous job paid well enough, and we were doing decently on our income, but they were mass layoffs because the company started going through a rough patch and eventually ended up shutting down. During that time he lost his job, and I promised him that I would pull through until he was able to find something else. A couple of weeks after he lost his job, he told me that he wanted to start his own business, and so he would be working on a business model, and was not going back to work until he had planned out everything. I was fine with that because I knew that it had been part of his plans for a really long time, and I agreed to this arrangement. I figured that it would take a couple of months, and once he started his own business and it started doing well, it would be really good for the family. So it was worth it to make some sacrifices right now for the sake of our future. So for the past couple of months, he has been saving money, and I've been handling all the expenditures on my own without any complaints in spite of all of that. He had been cheating on me for the past 3 months, and like I said, Vanessa knew about it and was even helping him cover up. I found out about it purely by accident, because he had left for a so-called business trip recently and had told me that it was necessary for him because he had a meeting with a big shot investor, and if he cracked this deal, he would be able to get his business up and going in just a couple of weeks. I didn't see any reason to doubt him. So I was the one who booked his flight tickets and the hotel room, since I never would have suspected him of anything shady. He had told me that it was going to be a 3-day trip, but the day before he was supposed to come back. But I came across a couple of text messages on Vanessa's phone that she had left on her bed, and that was how I was able to figure out the truth. I don't remember exactly why, but for some reason I had gone into her room while she was making herself something in the kitchen. I saw her phone lying on the bed, and I couldn't help but look at the screen when she received a message from her dad, and I ended up reading it through the notifications. It was something along the lines of, "Thanks for covering for me, coming back tomorrow." That got me a little curious because I wanted to know what exactly she was covering for, and I decided to unlock her phone and go through the messages because my birthday was coming up, and I honestly thought that they were talking about some surprise or something that they had arranged for me, and I really wanted to know what was going on. It was a bit childish, but I thought that I would just read the last few messages and let it go. It was not a problem unlocking her phone, because I had seen her do it several times and I knew her password. Once I was in, I read the last couple of messages, and I'm so happy that I did, because that's when I made the decision that I was going to leave. He had told his daughter that he had landed safely and stuff, reached the hotel and met some lady named Gwen. He had even told Vanessa that he was really thankful that she had convinced him that there really was some investor that he was meeting with, so I would pay for the trip, and told her that he owed her one. So that helped me figure out that she had known about this entire thing. She knew who Gwen was, and she knew that her father was going to go out to cheat on me, but she decided to help him out. After all, I guess blood is actually thicker than water. When I read those messages, I immediately started feeling quite nauseated, but I kept the phone down exactly how I had found it, so that Vanessa wouldn't be able to know that I had read those messages. Then I decided to keep aside my feelings for later and take action. At the moment, I drove to the bank immediately after I read those messages and applied to shut down the joint account that I had started with Jeff a few months before he lost his job. Back when he still had his job, we had decided that we could put aside some part of our income every month for stuff like our retirement and Vanessa's expenses in college. And even after he had lost his job, I had still been putting aside the money. However, that day I decided that it was time to shut that account. Since we were definitely going our separate ways, our bank only required one of us to be there to apply to shut the account, so I transferred all the funds from that account to mine and initiated the process. Some of that money was supposed to be his, but I don't think it mattered because for the past 8 months, I had been covering for him, so I think I deserve to keep the entire money from that account. After I did that, I felt much relieved. And while driving back home, I had a little crying session by myself, but put on a happy face before going back because home. I did not want Vanessa to be able to figure out that I knew about everything. The next day, when both she and her father would be home, that's what I was going to tell them. So for the rest of the day, I pretended like everything was fine. However, when Jeff came back home in the morning the next day, I decided to ask them to gather in the living room, and then I showed them the paperwork for shutting the bank account, and the title to the brand new car that we had just bought for Vanessa, and I told them that I had shut the joint account, and I would also need to hand over the keys of the car to me. Both of them looked shocked, probably because they had figured out that I knew by then. Then I confirmed it for both of them that I knew about Gwen, because I had seen some messages on Vanessa's phone. And then Jeff got to his feet, trying to explain to me that Gwen was just a friend, and it might have sounded suspicious, but it was really just all innocent and platonic, and he hadn't told me about it because he didn't want me to worry or overthink. But I'm no fool, I knew what was going on. And from the tone in the messages that he had sent to Vanessa, I knew that it had to be an extra affair, because otherwise he wouldn't have gone to lengths to cover things up. So I told him to lay it off, because there was no way that he would be able to fool me. And I told them that I wanted them to leave, because after what had happened, I didn't want either of them to be a part of my life anymore. They had used me financially, and both of them had betrayed me. What hurt the most was that I had done everything right. And this is still how they treated me after I had asked them to leave. They started pleading with me, apologizing to me and stuff, but I was not interested in hearing them out. And I told them that I was going to speak to a lawyer and get the divorce proceedings started soon, because I had made up my mind. And if they didn't leave, then I would gladly go away, so then they could handle the rent and everything. Both of them had started crying by that point, and it was really hard for me to control my emotions. But I knew that I had to, so I watched them pack and leave but didn't say anything. Then once the two of them were gone, I broke down again, but I still called my parents up and I told them everything. My dad was the one who did all the research and put me in touch with the divorce attorney later that day, and within a few days we had filed for a divorce. Those few days were very difficult because Jeff and Vanessa kept showing up at my house every single day to apologize, and I had to ignore all of it to the best of my abilities because I couldn't allow them back into my life again. Every single day like clockwork, they would show up at my door in the evening, beg for me to let them in, and I would ignore them. I could have called the cops, but I didn't have the emotional strength for that. So I would just shut them out, lock myself in my bedroom, and wait for it to be over. After I filed for the divorce, and they still came back that day, I decided to open the door and tell Jeff that there was no point in trying to get me back anymore because my lawyer and I had already filed for a divorce, and he had better find an attorney as well. Then I shut the door and went back to my bedroom, and I could hear him and Vanessa screaming for me to come back and at least talk to them, give them a chance to explain themselves and make things right with me. Anyway, after I told them that I had filed for a divorce, they didn't come back again, and I was a bit relieved. Then 2 days ago, my lawyer told me that Jeff and his lawyer had responded to my petition, and their claims were a bit surprising, because they were not ready to agree with the terms of my divorce, even though I thought I was being relatively fair. But according to them, they felt like they deserved to keep the car that I had gifted to Vanessa, and they also wanted me to send him a share of the money from the joint account that I had transferred to my account before shutting it down. Not only that, but apparently, they also felt entitled to ask for alimony because we had been together for a really long time, and this was the least that I could do for them since he was unemployed at the moment, and I hadn't given them enough time to prepare for the situation before kicking them out. I thought it was quite unfair of him to make any such demand since he had cheated on me and had been cheating for the past 3 months. I knew that because he himself had mentioned it to me quite a few times because he thought it was going to make it better. He thought that having an affair for 3 months was somehow better than 3 years, since at least it didn't really mean anything. So after I received his response to the petition, I decided to do something kind of sly, and I called him up really late at night. I pretended like I was very upset and kind of tipsy so as to make it seem less unnatural for me to be calling him so late, and then started talking about how he had let me down, and that the response to my petition was even more hurtful than getting divorced because it made me feel like he had only been with me for money for the past couple of months and that our relationship meant nothing to him. I started to pretend to cry, and I knew that doing that would help because it got him talking, and he started telling me that he didn't want this for us either. But since I had already filed for a divorce, he had to look out for himself and Vanessa as well. He could deal with the fact that he was unemployed right now and was relying on his own parents for a home and food on the table. But Vanessa was going to start college in a couple of months, and he couldn't risk that, which is why he needed the money. He actually started crying and told me that he was really sorry about everything, that he didn't even mean to cheat on me, but Gwen was the one who had initiated everything, and he just couldn't help himself because everything had been going wrong recently, and that was just a way for him to cope with the situation. He tried to reassure me once again that the situation with Gwen meant absolutely nothing to him, that they had only hooked up once when he went on the trip, and before that they had only ever spoken to each other online. And then he said that if I wanted to, we could still cancel the divorce and get couples counseling and try to make this marriage work. But by then I had heard enough. So I hung up on him, and since I've been recording that entire conversation, I sent it to my attorney as proof of him confessing that he had been cheating on me with Gwen. Unfortunately, when I had seen the proof on Vanessa's phone, I hadn't had the time to send it to myself. So it was just my word against his, and it would have made my case become weak. But now it was his own word against his, and my attorney told me that this would definitely help us out. That was today's back-in. Today we met with a mediator, and the first thing that we did was play the recording and say that because he had confessed to cheating on me, it meant that he couldn't talk his way out of it, and he would either have to agree to my terms for the divorce, or we would end up in family court with us, and even that wouldn't end up too well for him, since we are from a fault-based divorce state, and most of the time, when judges know that there has been adultery, they disqualify the adultery for alimony. To be honest, I didn't even want to entertain the idea of a mediator, and I wanted to take him to court, but my lawyer was the one who suggested it, since it might have been easier for him to just give up. He knew right from the beginning that it was a lost battle that he was fighting, and the look on his face was also worth seeing when I played the recording. Since I don't think he had seen it coming, We had to terminate that session without any conclusion because he was too shocked, and I was quite happy about it when I came back home. I still would have been happy about it right now if I hadn't received a text from Vanessa saying that it was really nasty of me to give Jeff false hope because he had really started to think that I might forgive him after that phone call the other night, and only had he realized it was just a way for me to manipulate him. For what it's worth, she also apologized for everything that had happened, but told me that Jeff was her father and she felt like she needed to be on his side, and that's why she had covered up for him. But there was nobody who regretted anything more than he did, and the least I could have done was not make a mockery of his feelings for me by using it to win the divorce. Apparently once he had gotten home after the mediation session, he had completely broken down, and nobody could comfort him and get him to stop crying. Not his parents, and not even her. She tried to make it seem like what they had done might have been wrong, but now I was in the same boat as them. Because even when I was turning out to be quite manipulative and ruthless, I personally don't think that's valid at all, but just because it's Vanessa who has been saying this, I can't help but take it to heart. I know it's irrational and unreasonable, but I still have to ask Ida for tricking my soon-to-be ex-husband into confessing that he had cheated on me, so I could use that against him during our divorce. Update 1. So this gave me the exact kind of reality check that I needed, and I'm so thankful for it. Going through the comments was a really huge wake-up call for me because I started to feel quite emotional, simply because Vanessa had said something to me. People can get mad at their partners and decide to forgive them. With their children, it's always dicey. I know that I'm not her biological mother. I've always known that, but nevertheless, I still raised her from when she was very little, and I have watched her grow up in front of my eyes. So naturally it was quite difficult for me to come to terms with the fact I was not going to be losing Jeff, but also Vanessa, the girl who I raised like my own daughter. I had already been finding it very difficult to cope with my emotions, and I guess that's why I got a bit carried away and started feeling kind of guilty, which is why I had to come here for validation. Thanks to you guys, I now am fully aware that it was her trying to manipulate me into feeling bad, and that's exactly what I should not fall for. I had already blocked Jeff, and after reading through the comments here, I decided to block her as well. If I'm being honest, one of the most difficult things I've had to do, even more than cutting Jeff out of my life. But it had to be done. What she did was unforgivable, and no amount of apologies is ever going to fix it. It really sucks, probably more for me than it does for her, because I had always wanted to be a mom, and when I found Vanessa and started building a relationship with her, I thought this was what I needed to complete my life. This is actually not my first marriage, and I had been married before, but unfortunately, that marriage had also ended in a divorce because of my infertility. When I was 22, I got married to my college boyfriend, and I was head over heels in love with him. So, we decided to start trying for a baby 2 years into our marriage. By then, we had been together for almost 5 years, and I thought that it was the right time. But we kept trying for almost a year, and nothing happened. And that's when we decided to get tested. And unfortunately, I was infertile, so we could keep trying. But it was likely that it would either take a really long time to get pregnant, or maybe I wouldn't be able to get without treatment and stuff at all. At the time, we had both just started working, so it was not realistic for us to start treatment since it was quite expensive, and we didn't want to rely on our parents. So, we had to push back our plans of getting pregnant, and it was hard for both of us. But he started distancing himself from me emotionally instead of being there for me, and eventually I couldn't handle it anymore. We started fighting a lot and quite frequently, and things would get very ugly. So after almost 1 year of trying to make it work, we decided to go our separate ways. I was single for a couple of years until I met Jeff, and with him I decided that I could maybe try falling in love again. That was obviously a huge mistake, which comes as a shock to me even now, because with him I decided that I wouldn't rush through anything. And we even waited for 6 whole years together before we even thought about marriage, because neither of us was ready for that kind of commitment, since I had just been through a terrible divorce a couple of years before that, and he had lost the love of his life 6 years before he met me. Both of us took it slow, and even then, it didn't even matter, because he still ended up cheating on me. I don't know why I'm sharing this. It's not really relevant to what's going on right now, but I just felt like I wanted to talk about it to somebody, because everybody in my life already knows all of this, and I didn't want to bother them by talking about the same things over and over again anyway. My point was that I had always wanted to be a mother, but unfortunately it had not been possible for me back then. And by the time I met Jeff and got married to him, I was already in my late 30s, and I didn't want to take that risk for the sake of my well-being. Besides, I already had to take care of them, so I had started thinking of her as my own daughter, and not even for a second did I think of her as my stepdaughter. I would always introduce her to other people as my daughter, but after everything that has happened, I don't feel the same way anymore. More than grieving over losing somebody that I love from the bottom of my heart, I'm upset about losing my daughter. They're both still alive, but I feel like the versions of them that I had in my heart are long gone now. So I'm grieving them, because things will never be the same again. The truth of the matter is that Vanessa is not my daughter. Because if she had been, she wouldn't have ever put me through something like this and would have been honest with me. And that's the saddest part of it all. That not only did I lose a husband, but I also lost my daughter. Update to hello everyone. Firstly, I would just like to thank every single person who responded to my last update and reached out to me to comfort me and left supportive and wholesome comments. It truly genuinely means a lot to me at a time like this, when I'm going through something so upsetting. To all my fellow women who have struggled with fertility and cheating partners, thanks for letting me know that things will get better, because I really needed that hope right now. Now getting into what has actually happened since my last update, which was around a week ago. Jeff has decided that he's going to agree to the terms of my divorce because he probably doesn't want to waste whatever little money on paying for an attorney, especially when he knows that he's fighting a losing battle. I know for a fact that he has been counting on his parents to help him out, but I guess they refuse to do anything apart from letting him live with them and free and eat with them. Whatever his reasons are, it doesn't matter, because he has decided to agree to my terms of the divorce. And now we only have to wait for a couple of months before the divorce is finalized. Neither of them has tried to reach out to me after that one mediation session, and I'm very happy that they haven't, because I wouldn't know what to say to them anyway. It has been especially lonely for me, but a lot of people encourage me to reach out to my friends and family and keep myself surrounded by my loved ones. So I know that there are people who genuinely care for me, and I don't fall into depression, and that's what I've been trying to do. I spend a lot of my time at work, and when I'm not there, I'm trying to keep myself occupied and busy, so I don't end up thinking about whatever I have lost. My friends and family have also been incredibly supportive and they keep dropping in to make sure that I'm doing fine. All the mutual friends that Jeff and I used to have off because of what he has done have told me that they are completely on my side and will always be there for me if I need somebody. I'm very grateful for that, because I don't think I would have been able to remain friends with anyone who would have been on speaking terms with him after everything that has happened. I've also started looking for an apartment, because I don't need to live in this house anymore. It's too big for just me, and I don't need that constant reminder that I'm on my own right now. So a lot of things are changing, and it's been very weird for me to try and cope with all of it, but I know that is a good thing, especially when you're trying to come out of a very depressing period of your life. Maybe it will be a great thing for me as well, and I'll come out of this stronger. Until then though, all I can do is try to keep fighting and hope for things to get better. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone who has been supporting me. It really means the world to me, and I'm very grateful for everyone here. Update 3. Hello guys. I've been inactive here for quite some time, but that's just because I've been trying to get my life together, and I guess I've been doing a pretty good job of it, because I am far happier than I used to be back when I was posting here regularly. I guess a life update is long overdue at this point, so I'll just get into that. It's been close to 2 years since my divorce was finalized, and it took me a really long time to start moving on from everything. But people were right, it does get better, especially when you keep fighting. After the divorce, I decided to move away from my city for a change of pace, because everything was just depressing and I needed something new. I already had all the money that I needed to start afresh, because I had been saving for retirement and putting aside a part of my income every month. I had already quit my job and moved away. So I decided that instead of working again, I was going to start traveling, because that's what I really like doing. When I was married, I would have to wait for all our schedules to align, so we could take a trip, but now I could just do whatever I want. I didn't really have any aim, but I started creating content on Instagram because I had seen a lot of people doing it, and I didn't have any intention of blowing up, but one of my videos did blow up. That was around 16 months ago, and since then it's only been getting better for me. I started getting opportunities to monetize my content after that, which is something I didn't even know was possible until recently, but that's how I started earning again, and now I get to do what I love for a living. I didn't know that I would be able to restart my life and have so much fun at my age, but it's happening and I'm truly happy. I do visit home occasionally, and I have kept in touch with my family and friends, but I'm also living my life to the fullest. I have absolutely no idea what Jeff and Vanessa have been up to ever since we got divorced, and I think it's better that way. I don't think I want to know what they're up to either. I'm really content with the life that I have right now, and I couldn't be more grateful for the divorce, because I think that really changed me as a person. I wouldn't say that it was a life experience that was necessary, but I guess I decided to make the most of my situation, since I really had no other way to deal with it, and it made me a bit fearless, which is why I'm getting to live the life that I have right now, and for that I will always be grateful. Anyway, that was me. Thank you for continuing to support me, and I really hope that everyone else who has been going through the same kind of trouble just finds the strength to hang in there, because now I know from personal experience that sometimes it definitely does get better.